I am here to introduce our moderator for this afternoon's session, Saran Oak, and she will update you on what our agenda is going to be for the day and introduce our distinguished group of panelists. But let me tell you first a little bit about Saran. She is the Office of Business Resources Manager for the City of Madison in the Economic Development Division. And in that role, she currently helps guide the city's post-COVID recovery efforts to support businesses who have been most negatively impacted. She also oversees business programs and initiatives with an equity lens. She is, in addition to her work with the city, founder and CEO of a nonprofit and LLC called Connections. Did I get that right? All right. Good enough? Thank you. Which works to help empower people to achieve their financial, community, nonprofit leadership goals. Saran was named one of In Business's 40 Under 40 in 2021. She has over 15 years of experience in the financial institution industry, and we are really fortunate to have her here and bringing her expertise to guide a really engaging discussion about what's going on in South Madison. So, Saran, take it away. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ed. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Enjoying the session so far? Awesome. I like the name session because my name is Saran and it's spelled S-A-R-A-N, but sometimes people like to just drop off the N and call me Sarah, or sometimes it's Susan or Saran. So that was an interesting session. But yeah, so thanks for joining our session this afternoon. So this is the Southside Madison Renaissance session. So never in the history of Madison has there been the geographic concentration of Black and Brown-led initiatives, resulting in an injection of $150 million plus in construction dollars and addition of hundreds of living wage jobs. When completed, these projects individually and jointly will contribute to the success of the Renaissance on Madison's South Side. So they represent a continuum of services ranging from education to housing, to culture, to small business, to training opportunities for Madison's diverse communities of Black, Latino, Asian, and African residents. Together, these projects mean more than just money and jobs. Seeing the physical power of these projects rising from the ground and becoming reality will bring a new sense of ownership and belonging that has not been felt by Madison's communities of color for far too long. So before we get started, please let me quickly introduce our panelists. I know I was like in 40 under 40, but now that I'm 40, I can't even see my notes anymore. My eyesight just changed. All right. So actually, I'll just go in the order of where folks are seated, if that's okay. All right. So Dr. Karen Menendez-Collar. Executive Director of Centro Hispano of Dane County. Coming to the U.S. from El Salvador, she has used her own immigrant experience to design and develop community-based programs that improve the trajectories of Latino families. To this aim, she has worked in multiple sectors, from government to academia, to advance the work. She joined Centro Hispano of Dane County in 2013 and has built it into the largest Latino organization in the country. That's huge. Her ambitious approach to fundraising has enabled Centro to expand their programming, serve more people, and become a force in Madison and Dane County. All right. Next, Reverend Dr. Alexander G., President, yes. President and founder of Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development, Dr. G is lead pastor of Fountain of Life Church and president and founder of Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development and its renowned initiative, Justified Anger. For almost 30 years, Dr. G has established himself as a thought leader in leadership development and cross-cultural relationships, both nationally and internationally. Locally, through Dr. G's vision, the programs of Nehemiah have focused on youth empowerment and leadership development, family and community wellness, economic development, and reentry services for the formerly incarcerated. Dr. Ruben Anthony. Needs no introduction, so I'll just skip his, no, just kidding. So Dr. Ruben Anthony, President and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Madison. Dr. Anthony has been the Urban League of Greater Madison since 2015. Prior to that, his career took several iterations, each of them bringing him closer to his commitment to working with and supporting the development of disadvantaged businesses. He is nationally known for being the architect of the Wisconsin model for increasing disadvantaged business participation. His recent work with the Urban League has also brought him national acclaim for the innovative use of new market tax credit housing for development, which Ed just told me was due today. All right. Last but definitely not least, Dr. Jack Daniels. President of Madison College, Dr. Daniels has more than 30 years of higher education experience, ranging from community and technical colleges to graduate institutions. As president of Madison College, he has led the college in reshaping how college responds to the unique needs of the community it serves and fostering an environment that values and supports equity and inclusion. In 2017, he has led a successful campaign to construct the Goodman South Campus on Madison's South Side that brought access to education and community resources to an area with substantial poverty, underemployment, and underemployment. So let's give one more round of our panelists. Thank you for being here today. So as we begin, you're going to hear from these panelists talk about what it means to them to see their dreams and the dreams of our community transform into bricks and mortar. So I have some questions for the panelists, and hopefully there'll be some time towards the end for questions from the audience. And I am really having a hard time seeing my notes here. All right, so let's start with Dr. Jack Daniels, because he is the one who led the development charge on Madison's South Side. In 2018, Madison College broke ground for the $25 million Goodman campus. It was a commitment by Madison College and its generous donors to serve a population that has been historically underrepresented and marginalized. According to Dr. Daniels, it was about answering the call to break the multi-general cycle of poverty for Southside residents and opening the door to a future of possibilities for local community members. Dr. Daniels, please tell us about the Goodman South Campus and what you've discovered about the South Side since welcoming your first student in 2019.
Well, thank you. It's really a pleasure to be on this panel with my friends and our partners. And when you asked me about South Campus, I tried to think through, this is a session that lasts an hour and 15 minutes, because I could be here all afternoon. But as many of you know, as we talked about Goodman South Campus, before we even broke ground, before we even thought about what we're going to do, we actually asked the community in many different ways what the need was. Because we wanted to know how we would actually craft an institution that would meet the need of the community. And I know and oftentimes we don't ask that question. Oftentimes we don't ask about workforce training or their lives and what we could do to make it better. And we wanted to get that information. So we spent a great deal of time asking about that need. And then we crafted what we wanted to do in terms of meeting that need. We had to raise the money, and we raised roughly $25 million to build that facility. And we built that facility, I think, in record time. The other underlining issue I wanted to look at was how we could be a catalyst for change. How could we actually be catalytic in making huge efforts in advancing the economic development, personal development, social development of South Madison? And I think what you're seeing right now, that's coming to fruition. And it's just not coming to fruition, it is here. And I think that's very powerful for South Madison. But when I think about the campus in itself, when we opened in 2019, we only planned on roughly 1,200 students. We had 2,100. And thinking about the excitement of seeing residents walk to the college from surrounding areas, it was huge. We also have a partnership with Madison Metropolitan School District, and it's called the STEM Academy. That STEM Academy has 200 juniors and seniors in that facility, all taking college classes. When that student graduates from MMSD, they have an average of over 52 college credits that are transferable. And we have many of those students who actually get their associate's degree at the same time they get their high school diploma. Goodman South Campus serves right now roughly 2,000 students. You know, the pandemic, we all took a hit in terms of students. What is encouraging right now is that we're seeing increases. And when I look this morning at the increase of students from last year, we're seeing at Goodman South Campus an 18% increase. That's huge. When you talk about the impact in the community, 60% of students at Goodman South Campus come from the surrounding zip codes. And they're coming for education. They're coming for training. They're also coming for socialization. And the community comes because we're offering services that they need. Legal services. Give you an example. They can get those at Madison College, Goodman South Campus. Goodman South Campus future, it has no limits, no boundaries. We know that healthcare is a huge demand occupation in our area. And we are going to expand our healthcare at Goodman South Campus. Not only talking about practical nursing, but getting to nursing, where there's huge shortages. We also have on the horizon focusing in on early childhood education, because we know there's a huge need, not just in the child care industry, but we also know there's a huge need for teachers in K-12. And we have great articulation agreements with not only our partners at UW-Madison, but throughout the state and nationally as well. So Goodman South Campus has a huge future in front of them. And I know that the Vice President, Tina Ahido, is leading that campus and is doing outstanding work. Come visit Goodman South Campus and see why we are so proud of it.
Thank you. I was a MATC student, so I know Madison College is excellent. I remember when I had to work 2 jobs, and Madison College offered evening classes for me, so I was able to still work my 2 full-time jobs and then go to school at night. So yeah, so thank you for the new South Campus. So next, this question is for Dr. Karen Menendez-Collar. Centro Hispano of Dane County recently launched a capital campaign to raise $15 million to build a new home for the Latino community at a site that is just around the corner from where you are today. Dr. Collar, please tell us about your project and why you chose to stay on the South Side when you could have moved anywhere in the city or the country.
Hello. Oh, good. It's working. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Saren, for the question. I always have to start by reflecting on the fact that I don't get to see these friends very regularly, but I have to tell you that for me, it's incredibly impactful because I always say this before I answer the question, but the start of the Goodman South Campus was something that was incredibly meaningful for me. And I remember in a community conversation having the privilege of meeting Dr. Anthony, and I'm so happy that he's the leader of our Urban League. And then Alex, we've had conversations about your daughter, her interest. I've gone on over and we talked about the way that you've lived in community and your history in the neighborhood. And I'm just so proud that we are a part of this together. It's incredibly meaningful for me. And I think, to that question, the reason that Centro belongs on the South Side, well, one, it's the zip code where there's the largest growing Latinx community in the city, but it's also a neighborhood with incredible meaning, with incredible history. And we want to be a part of that history, of sustaining the history of the space, but also guiding the future. I think we're talking about these projects and the buildings and, how incredibly powerful it is to see them come up. But I'm actually most excited about what's going to happen afterward when our organizations are strong, visionary, even more so than we are now, and we're able to do this together. So that's the main reason why we're staying in the area. We serve the entire Dane County community, see around 7,000 plus individuals a year, 2,500 families. But that neighborhood is where change is happening most rapidly. So that's where lessons are learned. That's where the hustle happens. That's when you see the assets, and that's what we want to grow and learn from. And we want to take those lessons and bridge them out into Dane County and keep growing and understanding what's happening in rural communities and in partnership with the Latino Chamber of Commerce that's growing statewide and other organizations that are here today. But it's very meaningful for me to be doing the work. I've been here in Madison for 10 years, and I've learned a lot by watching these men and everybody else that you have probably met here today. There's an incredible amount of assets in this community.
Thank you. So next question is for Dr. Ruben Anthony. So in the case of the Urban League, being the last does not mean being the least, quite the contrary. The Urban League's 25 million Black Business Hub is a project that is long overdue in Madison. For too long, the efforts to support the development of Black businesses have been lacking. We've heard you say that fewer than 1% of Madison's businesses with more than 10 employees are Black-owned. The Urban League is about to change the sad state of affairs. Dr. Anthony, please tell us about the hub and why you didn't think twice about locating the project on the South Side.
Well, thank you. I'm truly honored to be on this august panel with all these PhDs. But no, I'm just joking about that part. But definitely I'm glad to be on this panel with all of these individuals who have done so much good, not just in South Madison, but in the region as a whole. Particularly thinking about Jack Daniels' work first and him launching an anchor project. Sometimes it takes one person to step out or one organization to step out, and then the rest of us have to be there to take the handoff. And in this case, building Madison College on the South Side was that point of confidence where I think that not just us, but other investors looked into the South Side and South Madison as a place that really could thrive. So publicly, I want to thank you, Jack, for that, and tell you that we all are there to take the handoff because we know that South Madison is a special place, and a place that is worthy of more than one investment. And so definitely for us, having the Urban League on the South Side, I would ask the question, like, where else would we put it, right? If you look throughout the city, we know that when we look for a place to identify, South Madison is that place where African Americans identify. They look at Penn Park, they look at Nehemiah, they look at Mount Zion Baptist Church. And so, we all need to be encouraging that investment that's being made there, that we be inclusive. And, I say quite frequently, if the Urban League is not betting on black people and black businesses, brown people and women, who will? And so that investment needs to be in South Madison. South Madison needs to be that destination that we can be proud of. Coming into South Madison, we say that's the southernmost gateway entrance into the city. But when you come into the city, you need to feel like it's welcoming, and we need Destination Madison and all other entities that are marketing the city to look at South Madison as a destination place. If I go to California or New York, ethnic communities, some of them are marketed as places that you must stop. South Madison has to be that place, and I think these projects that we're bringing, will put South Madison in that position for when folks want to come to Madison, it will be one of those must stops that you have to have place. And so it is, I often say, like the enclave, the African American enclave. I got like a call not too long ago from a former governor, and he says, hey, I got a call today from the La Follette Institute, and they're trying to recruit an African American professor, and but his wife wants to see what the black community is like, because we hear all these stories about the haves and the have-nots, and the black people typically fall in the have-nots. But would you talk to her about what Madison has to offer for black people? Well, I'm telling you today, and I've been telling everybody, is that we've got South Madison to offer. And what we're doing now is just scratching the surface. And we refuse to sit on the sideline, and not be a part of the economics that are going on in South Madison, because we see all this gentrification coming, down from the university all the way to the Beltline. And a lot of that is exclusive, where we're not included, right? But having these leaders stand up and say that we're betting on you, South Madison, and not just for South Madison, but the whole region as a whole. That's why we put the Black Business Hub in South Madison, because the Urban League has been there for a number of years, and we're going to continue to invest in there. We think we have the most direct impact, as many of the statistics that Jack Daniels shared during the time that he was pushing to have Madison College move over there. He showed that the need is there, and so the question is, why not?
And Dr. Ruben Anthony, did you say that you just raised $17 million from the community?
Yeah, so far our project is a $25 million project, and we raised almost $18 million now. And the community has come out to support us in lots of ways. We did needs analysis first, where we had this thing called the Agenda South, where we invited the community to come out and talk to us about what they wanted. And I can tell you, it's not just the African American community that's supporting us. We have private citizens, we have foundations, we've got banks, and we got a whole host of folks coming out. And at some point in the process, even regular people will be asking you to come buy bricks and make a contribution to the hub, because it is going to be a project that gives for multiple generations.
Congratulations on raising that $18 million so far. So another $7 million to go. Come on, y'all. All right. So last but not least, Dr. Alex G., your project, so 38 million, the Center for Black Excellence in Culture, is rich in its effort to affirm, inspire, and advance the Black community in Madison and beyond. This 65,000 square foot building is expected to be the cultural hub for our community's Black history and culture. Dr. G., please give us a snapshot about the center and tell us about the decision to locate this transformational project on Madison's South Side.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just want to say that if you want to send donations to the hub, just send them to theblackcenter.org. Sorry, that's the inside joke. It's really an honor to be here. And I'm sitting here across from my friend, Victoria Harris, and we grew up in South Madison together. We remember Ben Franklin, Rennebaums, Burroughs Bowl, Eagles Food, Big Boys, John Long Silver. We always knew that it was a vibrant community. We played there. Although we went to rival schools, we were friends there. And many of the folks who seemed to be historic figures were real people who knew us, who encouraged us, who told us to go to school, who told us to stay out of trouble. And I just feel very proud that we get to build on the tradition of those folks. I feel very proud to have lived long enough to see the dreams and the hopes of some of these folks come to pass, because South Madison has always been vibrant and it's always been diverse as well. And we appreciate that. We think back to when Lincoln was a middle school, the teachers were about half male, half female, and we were about, it was just very, very, very diverse experience. We want to just continue to build off that tradition. When I'm not raising money for the center or leading our church, I'm a podcaster. And it's a show that's called Black Like Me. And when I open up, I have something that's called Icebreakers. And I'll ask people whether they're from the West Coast, down South, Midwest, East Coast. I'll ask questions that are sort of insider family cultural kinds of things. And it's interesting, whether we're from Florida or from San Francisco or Chicago, Milwaukee, it's amazing how similarly we answer these questions. And like, what does it mean when your grandmama dreams about fish? Or how do you get a fishbone out of your throat? Like, what do you do? People are like, oh, I know. You take white Wonder Bread and you. The reason we do that is because culture is proof that Black people were not destroyed by systemic racism and slavery. Culture is how we bequeath greatness to the next generation. Culture is about our roots, it's about our routine, and it's about our resilience. It's about understanding where we came from. It's about why we do what we do. Why do we talk about things the way we do? Why do we train our children the way we do? Why do we call our elders Miss or Mr. by their first names and not call them by their first names to show respect to them? But it's also about deep resilience. Our history did not begin with slavery. It does not begin with a transatlantic slave journey. And so I love the fact that we're focusing on culture to tell our stories and to strengthen ourselves. Because having lived and worked in this community, or having lived in this community for 52 years, most of what is thought about when it comes to Black people are remedial programming. I'm a beneficiary of that. I have benefited from that. I understand it, support it. But if we want to really grow and think and talk about excellence, we have to reach for something other than just remedial programming. And I've also found that most of what's been designed for Black people in this community has not been designed by Black people. So for us, culture was important, that we had Black people at the helm, the first donors, the shapers of this. We met with hundreds of Black folks to ask what would make this community livable for you? What would make you proud to raise your children here? And we had a resounding response. We want our children to be seen as leaders to be developed and not problems to be fixed or to be studied. And that's important to us, but that means culture is how we pay that forward. Culture tells how we got here, why we sustained. It tells about our food. When our hearts were broken, our music was shaped by that. When we wanted to tell our stories, but we wanted our mourning to sound like excitement, we had soul sounds that became R&B, that became soul music, that became rap, that became gospel, that became jazz. Our pain has always been translated into something that became this thing that was exciting. We were given the lower parts of animals to eat because we weren't given the right kinds of foods on plantations or on sharecropping farms. But we found a way to cook the heck out of it and put some barbecue sauce on it and make it a delicacy because we were taught to be resilient, to take what you have, to be thankful, to bless it, and to also enjoy it. And so our culture is the residual effects of our suffering, but our resilience. But when I look around, that's not what we talk about. That's not what we learn about. When I came here as a second grader, I sat in the classroom at Lapham School where I was one of two black students and was told that I was a descendant of a slave. The whole classroom, I was horrified. I didn't know that slavery existed. When I left Chicago in first grade, my teacher was black. She's 102 years old. We're still pen pals. We still keep in touch with each other. But she told me I was going to be the first president that looked like me in the United States. This is 1969, and she put in my head that I was going to become the president of the United States. And then the very next school year, I found out I was a descendant of a slave without any context or culture. How do you fix that? How do you address it? How do you stop your peers from laughing about it? And I came home and asked Mom, were we really slaves? And I thought that at any moment that it could happen again. And so culture is about our story of how we got here and why. And I feel like that's not vibrant enough. It's told here and there, but that third space that's rich with a resounding sense of transcendence, that you've risen out of the ashes, this too will pass. You know how to get out of this. And we don't see that here. It's like going to grandma's house or someone's house and you see everyone else's picture, every other grandchild but yours. That's what it feels like to be a person of color in this community, that you don't see your stories being center stage unless it's black-faced in some way. And so for us, we wanted to approach excellence by reminding ourselves and our children that what you see, what you read in the media is not all there is to our story. We are survivors. No matter what's thrown at us, we bounce back. And I want that to be the base of our programming. I want that to drive our excellence, our intellectualism, our creativity, our innovation. I want the fact that we are strong, thriving people, and nothing about us is weak or feeble. And so for me, taking the approach to look at culture was a tremendous way to move ahead. I was fortunate enough to be a part of this, the Year of Return project in 2019, commemorating the survival of 400 years of slavery. And as I stood with peers in slave dungeons in Ghana and West Africa, I realized that in the school systems here, I was taught to be ashamed of my African heritage. And I never felt prouder to be a human being than when I stood in that space and realized what my ancestors endured so that I could be who I am today. And I made a declaration to myself in Ghana. I said, when I come back, whatever this cultural space that I'm designing, whatever that looks like, it will be built in culture and routine, and it will connect me not only to my African roots, but to the African diaspora, because we cast a broad shadow, and the influence of the descendants of Africa have literally changed this world and humanity. And I am proud to be able to not only make this par for the course for Black folks in this community, but to welcome the broader community to understand how we have shaped and touched your worlds as well.
Yes, thank you for that. I agree that understanding your culture and your background is really important, especially for our youth. I feel like, kids are just so lost these days, and just understanding where they came from, being proud of who they are, is just crucial so that they could grow up to be successful folks like you all on the panel. So thank you for that. Because we're running a little short on time, I think I'll go through some of the questions that we had, if that's okay with the panel, and then just making sure we have enough time from questions from the audience. But I would like to ask, so this question is for all of you. Your projects are all located on the south side, within a mile or so of each other. For starters, what is the intersectionality of the projects? In other words, how do they connect? And equally important, how do you connect with each other? And if you're not connecting yet, what would or could collaboration look like?
Yes. So, I hope what everybody is getting the sense from when we're speaking here is that there's a tremendous amount of passion and something that's coming from within, because there's so much on the outside that's not provided for BIPOC communities in Wisconsin and in Madison. And so there's a tremendous sense of urgency and depth and need for quality and robustness and catching all the nuances, because that is what our families and that is what our young people need, and that's what they deserve. The systems are trying to catch up. That's totally understandable. So I think, we hold a very important role in these organizations to drive things forward in partnership with the systems. So that the fact that we're so close together in the South Madison area, to me, is incredibly exciting. I voiced it before. I don't get to see these men enough, in part because our task at hand at Centro, I'll speak for Centro, is tremendous. We carry a big load, and we're committed to making sure that our families are going to thrive, that they're going to heal, that they're going to be successful when it comes to our youth programs, middle school, high school, college, beyond, apprenticeships, whatever it is. And we run family support services that are there to really stabilize the journey, and we engage with community to make sure that this feeling and the sense of what it means to be Latinx in this community is felt by everybody. That said, every time we connect, it feels like coming back home. It feels like I haven't seen them in a short amount of time. And I have to tell you that, with Goodman South, it's probably one of our strongest academic partners when it comes to our workforce programming. We've been working with Madison College over the last 10 years to grow our healthcare partnership, our finance program. We develop badges. There's stackable credits, all in partnership with Dina Hero. A lot of it with the vision of Dr. Daniels. The work that we do with Urban League, the Hire Initiative, I know United Way is here present, is instrumental. Centro used to be the home for the Schools of Hope Elementary program. That was a tremendous sense of pride, and I know Urban League is the home and the key lead and visionary in partnership with United Way for Schools of Hope Middle School. And I can tell you, going up the street and seeing all that Alex is developing in his vision, the work that you've been doing at Nehemiah, at Centro we're starting a peer specialist program because I've witnessed all of the development that you're doing in your reentry work. And so I think for me, the fact that we're close together and that we remain connected to each other in the best way possible, to me is incredibly important. And can I tell you that the one phrase that I hate for people to use is when they say, things here work in silos, nobody talks to each other. That's what the outside always says. That's not what the inside believes. And I think that's the most important thing for me, so.
I think the key when you think about intersectionality is thinking about partnerships, thinking about collaboratives. And there's a huge collaborative that's happening in South Madison. When we think about our partnerships, the partnerships we have with Centro, and I think Karen has already talked to some of that, with the Urban League, in the past of working on training together and working on other issues that impact South Madison. We've done that in the past and looking forward to working with the hub and how we can actually help and assist in that endeavor. I think with Alex's his vision and his dream and where I see that the center is going, how can we assist in that development? I also look at there are other leaders within South Madison. They're not here on this panel, but also creating the partnerships with them. And it's just not the partnerships in which they have going on right now, the projects that is going right now, it's the future. We've come together and talked about childcare. What should we be doing about a huge barrier to employment, but also to learning? And this is going to continue. It's dynamic. It will continue to evolve. And I think that is one of the beauties of our partnerships and continually talking and continuing to plan.
So I think that our close geographic proximity will be physically transformational. You won't just see one thing changing in South Madison, but you're going to see a whole lot of Black-led things changing in South Madison. And when I look at each of the different projects, there is this spatial connectivity, but there also is this programmatic connectivity. When I think about Dr. Daniel's space, I think about Central is going to come down, and Central will be on Hughes Street. And that's going to bring new energy to Hughes Street because our project is on Park and Hughes. But I see when Central comes down, there could be a walking path from Madison College that now expands Madison College's campus connection now to the Black Business Hub and Hughes Street, because there now with the existing Central coming down, there's the chance to now have a conversation with the city to say that there needs to be a safe walking path. And so now we'll see the campus extending. I also see the Center of Black Excellence, as a place that will have reciprocal relationships. Those folks that are using that space can always use our space. Right now, Alex, Dr. G, is an advisor to me. I'm an advisor to him. And so we're already working together. I just wish he'd stop going to all these places and raising all this money before I get there, because he's pretty good, at what he's doing there. But for the most part, I think the collaborative impact of all of us there, that is the actual renaissance coming to bear, as not just a concept, but now as a changing of the places. I also see Madison College as that place when we have our commercial kitchen, which we'll have in the hub, that there might be training opportunities, because he didn't have a commercial kitchen, I don't think, over at Madison College. And so the programming that we've done with him in the past, I just see that there's going to be an expansion of the programming there. So it's this collective spatial change and programmatic change that we will get the maximum impact to the community and to each other. So I don't think we're at any means in competition, but I just think that it's all a part of this massive change that's going on. I'm excited about the Center of Black Excellence as almost our overture there on the South Side, and our Black Business Hub as our research center and our business center. So it's going to be great, a few years down the road.
One of the things that's really beautiful is that we knew each other and of each other's work before all of these millions of dollars really followed our work. And what I can say honestly about these individuals and colleagues is that they aren't chasing the money, but really it's following them and their good efforts. And that's really important to note. The other thing I want to put out is that I think they've been all very gracious in how we've answered the question, but I think I'll just throw this out there. I don't know that our white counterparts have to justify how collaborative they are. They can build up East Washington, Park Street, and I never see them on a panel saying, oh, how does JEK and how does TY, like, how do you guys get along? Do you play golf together? Like, do you kids go together, to Little League? But we have to constantly, show, I'm not mad at Karen, I like Ruben, Dr. Daniels is cool. I feel like we always have to do this, but these folks have been hardworking in the community. Because we're talking about joint projects that hover around $100 million, now people want to scrutinize to say, how is all this money going to South Madison? Is it being duplicative? And people weren't really asking that question before resources started coming in. And so I hope that you are getting a sense that there is true collaboration and a spirit of collaboration. But we also understand that our counterparts who are not Black and brown don't have the same pressure. And we want to continue to work together to really stop the gentrification that we see happening in South Madison. Not like it's about to come, like it's there. We see it, we feel it. Property that was blighted when Black people owned it is now owned by white developers. We see these things happening right in neighborhoods where I delivered newspapers and went to Cub Scout meetings. And so I'm hoping that our work continues to preserve the wonderful legacy of the South Madison community. But it is exciting to not only be working together, but to have had the funders to wise up and not cause us to compete against each other. when the governor announced several millions of dollars to our organizations, they had to like call us into the meetings because we were taking selfies and stuff like, "Come on, Karen, smile, smile." And so, because we were excited to see each other, as she said. But I can remember, Dan, in a time where funders would say, "I'm sorry, Alex, we've done South Madison. We've given at the office." I know what that meant. That was code for, "We've done our black due diligence. We'll see you next year." So to see funders giving to Centro and to the Hub and to the Center and I think something just came out recently with BMO, and CUNA had something that's out. I feel that the community is understanding that it takes all of us to work together to touch upon these different things, and they are repositioning themselves so that we are not pitted against one another, but that we are funded for collaborative work, and that is refreshing. And that's going to allow us to have longevity in the game, because that kind of stuff can really kill you, not just your campaign, but it can ruin your health. And I appreciate the fact that we're being funded jointly. That's very important. And we celebrate each other's successes.
Yes, thank you for that, Dr. G. And thank you for bringing up gentrification. So Dr. Anthony and G, because you've been located on the south side of Madison for the longest with these projects, what is your reaction to the development that is occurring in South Madison? And there are two sides of development, and gentrification is one of those sides. So please talk about your thoughts regarding gentrification and what it could be done to curb its effects on longtime South Side residents.
So my initial response is that if it's not inclusive and if you don't have minority developers involved, and if you don't have South Madison residents benefiting from it, it could be a bad thing. And so, everybody wants to see some areas that are blighted or outdated, improved. But that improvement can't be done in a way that now people can't afford to live in that neighborhood. And so when you see the condominiums coming up, and they're high-end condominiums, and the rents are $2,500 or $3,000 a month, you have to ask the question, who would you build this for? Because you certainly didn't build it for the people that live in South Madison, because a lot of them may not be able to afford that. And so I get concerned about that. And so, we talked earlier this morning, they were talking about, not being a lot of brown and black developers here, and we got to go to Milwaukee for the ACRE program. But there's ways that we can be more inclusive. When I see speculation going on where you have certain businesses that are going in there fastly buying up property and maybe have bought up a lot of the available property that was there, and now they have kind of like a lock, on most of the rental properties there, and they're too high. The monthly rent is too high for residents to even stay there. So I think that sometimes this gentrification, it causes displacement, and so I'm concerned about that aspect of it.
I grew up on Fisher Street, right down the hill from Penn Park and Mount Zion Church, and my mother's in the memory care facility right now, but her home is still in the family's care. We own it. I get letters every month saying we'll buy your house for cash. I have people writing me all the time saying we want your house. So people are really descending on South Madison. And I remember when people didn't want to live in South Madison. They remember Pearlie's and Mr. P's, and so, inside joke, that's kind of like South Side stuff, but didn't want to live in South Madison. I also think development is not only what you build, but it's who you build. And I feel that I don't know how often a black leader is going to be able to control $38 or $40 million in this community. So I'm making sure that our construction company is that we're hiring a black construction company, that we're hiring black interior architects. Our designer is black. I'm making sure that our business plan developer, the same company that developed the business plan for the Smithsonian Black History Museum, because I have to use this opportunity, because if people come to that hill and the only people wearing white hats are white people, then I'm going to be taken to task, and I should be. And so for me, development is not only what we put on the ground, but who we're putting on the ground. So we're taking some efforts to bring groups and black-led entities and businesses into the community and making sure that our construction company and others that we're working with are not only bringing people in and hiring black people on the job, but actually opening ways so that they can actually move into this market and develop themselves in South Madison and in the broader community. So for me, development is not just what we're doing with bricks and mortar, but it's what we're doing with people, their jobs, their creativity. So when this is finished, I want to see more contractors who look like me and my family in this community doing extremely well the way Harris's used to do years ago. This isn't new here. They just went away. We need to bring this back.
So we only have 4 minutes left, so I just want to open it up to the audience for questions. Go ahead.
Dr. Anthony, what does the business hub mean, or your hub? Can you talk about that?
Sure. So the business hub will be a place that's 80,000 square foot of space for minority-owned businesses to come. But also in the hub, we will have an accelerator program so that you can have access to capital, access to training, and other resources to help small and developing businesses grow.
I like that. I think I'm going to start a business.
All right. Talk to us.
Any other questions? You could come up to the microphone up here, or if you're like, okay.
I work for the city of Sun Prairie, and I guess I just want to get your take on what communities outside of Madison proper can do to replicate your successes in South Madison, and maybe even pledge your support for communities like Sun Prairie and other communities in the Madison area, and how you guys would be potentially willing to contribute to minority-owned businesses and culture in those communities.
That's a great question. I believe that it's important for the leaders of municipalities to realize that it takes more than just the municipality or the philanthropic community or the business community or the faith community. Someone's got to be the conduit to bring the various groups together. But I would say the biggest thing is to listen. You hear us talking about that with Karen's project, with Ruben's, with ours. We've listened to probably close to 800 black folks in our community. What do you want? What do you want to hear? And then actually empower people to lead that. Get behind it. Get out of the way. Fund it so that it happens. But I would say it really begins with listening, because those closest to the problem are the ones in the best position to understand the solution. That listening piece, I think, is really key.
So I would tell you to be willing to accept regional victories. So a black business hub in Madison can also serve Sun Prairie, and it could serve the whole region. And so, even though those businesses might be located in Sun Prairie, you guys can have a bus or some type of transportation that will help those businesses get to and from, Sun Prairie to Madison. And so, again, like I say, just celebrate the regional victories, and some of the work that we'll be doing in South Madison won't just serve us, because as these businesses train, they're going to locate in communities like like Sun Prairie and other places. So you can support us now with local contributions and other expert support.
Because we do know that the black community drives out to Sun Prairie for the corn festival. We'll come and get that sweet corn. And so you all can drive to the south side to get some culture.
If I can add to this, I think it's really important regardless of the community. We serve all the parts of 12 counties. And what I would always suggest to folks is what is the need? And focus in on what is the need, and develop coalitions, develop consortiums that can actually focus in on the need, because that's what's going to drive funders. And if you're strong in that, that will occur. From a business perspective, Madison College also has entrepreneurs, an entrepreneur center. And we would be more than willing, and I know we do already, work with folks who are in Sun Prairie, as well as folks who are in other parts of Dane County and the other 12 that we serve.
Yeah, just emphasizing all the points that were made, but clearly the resources are here, and they have been. So thinking about, as a municipality, looking internally and seeing, what are we missing? How come we're not listening enough to understand what's really necessary here and what is happening to our community? So come to these sessions and I think Alex kind of hinted at this, but we're here providing knowledge, but also take it as a moment to reflect and be like, what is our gap? What is going on here? And then we're accessible to, help move that along as best as we can. But I'm almost positive that there's things going on in Sun Prairie without us that maybe we're not listening enough to. And those are the diamonds that need to be found and elevated.
Well, it's 2:40, so we are actually going to end on time. Oh, did someone had one more question? All right, quick.
Yeah, so I just want to say I've worked at, well, all right, thank you. I've worked out of 3 of your 4 lobbies. Dr. G, I've been in your church when Kaleem was looking for funds for one city. We use the word intersectionality. We've used the word disparity, remedial. There in that 3-block area, you'll see, what family looks like, what community looks like, belief, what faith looks like, what culture looks like. You'll also see what hustle looks like, business, and most of all, you'll see resilience, right? And so I've sat in the Burger King parking lot and fed myself a Whopper, and I can see, all the stuff going on over at the Urban League. I can see Centro Hispano. I can see even Oscar over at Omega School. All the stuff that he has going on. And then you have the college there as well. And I just want to say, I commend you for all the work that you're doing. And I don't live in Madison, but I get to work in South Madison an awful lot. And so, even you have the South Madison Partnership that's there as well. I work out of there once in a while for free. And then also, you have WIBIC in that area. You have so many entities that have come together that are making it go. And if you have not been to that area recently, I invite you all to go there, because you will see all those things I just listed off. But the big thing that you'll see is resilience. And I just say, I applaud you and I commend you for all the work that you're doing. The work's not done. It might not look pretty sometimes, but you're moving it forward, and you're making that gap smaller. So thank you.
Well, that is a great way to end our session, so thank you so much. Please thank the panelists one more time. Thank you.